Hello YouTube. I'm here down at the garden, and I had posted a couple of things about the garden not too long ago, but I thought I'd update things and give you a little bit more complete tour of the garden. It's a small garden, but it does serves our purposes for a good many vegetables. We want to expand it and have it to where it'll accommodate more of our gardening needs and such like that. But I thought I'd give you a view and see what we've got. The first thing you might notice is that what I've got is I've got fencing all around it. I did this, and I actually pulled up a YouTube from a fellow down in Florida who has a groove, and then this sheep and goat panel, which is a 4-inch panel, and I put this in here. I put down below, I put some of the 4-inch panel, but then I put black chicken wire, and you can see the black chicken wire goes up to about 2 or so feet, and all of this is to keep the deer out, and I'll show you some pictures of other things we've done to keep the deer out. But I also have, along with it, I have a electric wire along the bottom. I'm gonna probably put an electric wire on the top, and this is to keep raccoons and stuff like that from climbing up and getting inside of it. But so far throughout the season, the deer haven't been inside of here. In some places they could probably jump the fence, but I've had no deer, no rabbits, no raccoons as of this date. So this is kind of what we've got. So I'll show you inside. Now, one thing you might notice from the very beginning is I did use raised beds, and I put concrete block in here, and I dug these into the ground, so they're probably down about 4 to 6 inches depending on where it is, and then I try to level everything up. These are 4 by 12 raised beds, and what I did was I got a trailer load of garden mulch or garden soil and put it in here after I did that. Now, underneath the soil I put sand screen, 1/4-inch sand screen to keep voles and things from digging up. But then I also put landscape fabric on top of that to keep the weeds and stuff down. So I started off pretty much weed free. This is our tomato bed, and we also have strawberries. The strawberries we put inside of the block holes. And the block holes are really a useful growing space. One thing that you do have to watch out for is watering. Because it's a smaller space, it loses its water quicker, and also the porosity of the block makes it to where water is lost from the outside. But so far it's worked out real well. The strawberries, here's a nice one, that they cascade over the side and do really, really well. So we're very pleased with that. One thing we did, when we did put our soil in, we mounded it up pretty good, but it settled down to where I've got about 2.5 to 3 inches from the top, and that's okay in this bed. I want to fill these back up though with soil, these little block areas like this, because they're down about 3 or almost 4 inches now. So I want to fill those back up and then replant my strawberries in there. But it's doing very well. Now, between the blocks, what I did was I put down landscape fabric and newspapers to block the weeds and such, and then I also put gravel on top of that. The reason I use gravel instead of hardwood mulch is because where we are gets a good bit of wash, and we're on a pretty good slope, and what happens is the mulch would actually wash away, and I don't want all that effort to kind of wash away, and it doesn't do any good if it washes away anyway. So I put small gravel in here, and this is cleaned gravel, so it's not crush or run. It's about 1 inch is what they did for this gravel, so it's worked out fairly well. But this is my tomato area, and this has done very well. Now, one thing I did have was I had some slugs in my strawberries, so I went ahead and I put some of my coffee hulls and such in here, so that what'll happen is maybe some of the coffee will drive away the slugs or kill the slugs and keep them out of here. So that ought to be a good thing. But this is the tomato bed. Now, I do have some peppers over here, which have not done very well. I'm going to have to rethink where I'm going to put the peppers and that sort of thing. So I think in a bed would be better, and also they're being shaded out by the tomatoes too. Now, this is the bed right across from that other one, And what I've got in here is I've got thyme, which is very fragrant. I wanted to put herbs along the edges. I've got thyme, I've got chives. I'll expand the chives into several of these little holes. I planted onions here, and I planted about 3 times this number of onions, but this is what has survived. We had a pretty good bit of heat this summer, and I didn't have irrigation or water down here, so the little onions didn't make it. And I tried onion seeds. I didn't do sets this year, which is a new thing for me. Now, one thing I did also was I planted some mixed greens and some carrots in here, and they hadn't done anything. Part of it was I used last year's seed because I got it for half price, which half price is no price because they didn't do anything. So I won't do that again. I do have behind here, I have lima beans. Here are the baby limas that are growing, and they're doing real well. I have basil over here, I have French lavender back there, and sage on the outside. I did have dill across the back, and it's already played out this year, but it did real well. We've got a lot of dill seed. This is rosemary, and the rosemary's come along fairly well. So herbs in the edges have done well. The basil's just gone crazy. We hadn't cut it a lot. We should have been cutting this and drying it for the year, but we have enough dried already, so that's the way that goes. So rethinking a little bit right here, but making some progress. Now this next bed over here, here what I have is I have crowder peas, and I have these up on an A-frame trellis of cattle fencing. And we've used cattle fencing for years, and I would advise anybody to do that. It's real sturdy. Our tomatoes actually got blown over, so I had to use rebar to hold up tomato cages. But these are crowder peas on the cattle fencing, and it's just trying to get some vertical element to the garden, and that way I can expand my production. But these seed I planted from old seed that I had in a jar that I had saved from Lancaster, South Carolina. So they germinated almost 100%, did real well, and now I've got beans that are actually starting to form on here, so that's pretty good. I do have lima beans and I planted them in the holes of the blocks here beside the crowder peas. On the back here, also on an A-frame, I have some cucumbers, and I planted too many cucumbers. I just need to cut back on some of those things. Too many cucumbers, too many little grape tomatoes. I've got grape tomatoes, coming out of my ears. The other tomatoes, probably the right amount, but grape tomatoes, too many. I'd probably need to do double or triple the amount of peas and beans. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the garden up the hill. So I've built a temporary back to this fence. The back's not permanent. And then what I'll do is I'll slowly expand up the hill and put some in-the-ground crops on terraces still, but they won't have raised beds and such. But crowder peas, butter beans, doing real well here. Now what I have here is I have zucchini, and the zucchini's done very well. I planted too much. I probably should have planted one little hill of zucchini, maybe 2 or 3 plants in that hill. But it's very prolific, as zucchini always is. Also in this bed I have spinach that I planted in the block holes, and I also have some English peas or green peas that I planted in there. I planted the green peas and the spinach about mid-July, which I think is too early because neither one of them did very well. So I'm going to have to replant both of those. Here you can see the peas that just didn't do anything. There they are, and I think I've gotten 2 peas. There's two pods right on that one, but that's about it. So I'm going to have to replant these. The spinach was in these little holes, and before I put these potatoes up here, and it just hasn't done much at all. I think it was too early for that. Now I am trying potatoes in containers. These are potatoes. I planted these and they weren't doing anything through the summer. Now they're really starting to put off some growth. As they grow up, I'm filling these with soil and building the soil up to probably, I won't go any further than here so it'll still hold the water, but that's done real well. I have put marigolds around some of these. Marigolds are good for keeping out nematodes and things like that. So I put those in. Also, it's really, really pretty. Here's some marigolds, and this is another batch that's done real well next to the tomatoes. I also put some sunflowers in, and these have almost played out. They're also in the holes of the block but have been beautiful throughout the season. This is a dwarf sunflower because our winds are so high up here. I really can't plant the tall sunflower. Behind the sunflowers, you'll see I do have corn, and I put the corn in the ground. Here you can see that it's in the ground as opposed to in a raised bed. I've done corn in raised beds before, and every time it blows over and doesn't come back. This blew over because we had a couple of big storms coming through, and I just straightened them back up, hilled up some soil around them, and they've done fairly well. Now I am a little weedy here. I haven't worried about weeds that much, but all I did with this was dug it up with a shovel and then tilled through with an electric tiller. Just a real, almost a cultivating tiller to break up the soil some, and then planted the corn. I have fertilized it some with a liquid fertilizer and some of the other things with liquid fertilizer. No insecticide on anything, but a little bit of liquid fertilizer here and there. Now, one problem that I did have was I put the garden down here because it's the flatter place on this side of our drive. I thought about putting it in the big field, and then just thought this is going to be the best location for a long-term garden. So I put it over here. It is a little bit of a frost pocket, but not too bad. But this is where I'm going to work the garden up the hill. One problem that I had, though, and this is what I was going to mention, was water was a real problem. I didn't have water down here. I started out bringing buckets of water down and would water everything with buckets. And I just decided, well, that was more work than I wanted to do. So what I did was I went ahead and I made a water system off of the gutter of the shop, and you can almost not even see it now, but there's the water tank there that's coming off the gutter, and I'll show you a close-up of this. But it comes down here, and here's the hose that it comes down with, and it produces a pretty good bit of pressure. You can see, you know, here's the water, and what I'll do is I'll water it. I can run a sprinkler off of this, a little oscillating sprinkler, and it does pretty good. It's amazing because it's probably about 25 or 30 feet drop between the upper part and the lower part. But I do have water now. That stores 250 gallons, and it's great because I emptied it out one day, and then one rainstorm filled it back up. So it's a pretty efficient system in the way it works. I've had to do some adjusting and tweaking of it, and I'll continue to do that. But this is kind of so what we've got is we've got the garden here, and it has been very productive. Tomatoes, we've canned a good many tomatoes. We're going to continue to do some more. And these are the big tomatoes, not the Roma tomatoes. We may try some of those next year. But the tomatoes have done real well. The zucchini's done real well. The beans are coming along. The corn is coming along. I have had some corn earworm things that I've had to kind of attend to. But most of the time I'll just go through and I'll squish bugs like tomato hornworm bugs, and then the corn earworm. I've squished some of those and just hunted for those. But everything's doing really well. I'm real pleased with it. I like the blocks. It's a clean sort of way of doing. I like the fencing. I haven't had any problem with deer or other varmints because of that. So it's worked out well. If you have questions about this or anything, feel free to drop me a note or whatever. But I've enjoyed working it. It's been a lot of work to get it in, and a lot of expense too. It's not cheap. But what it does do is it gives us an element of self-sufficiency that we were needing, and it also ends up providing, I mean, we have really enjoyed the tomato sandwiches and those sort of things, and it's nice to be able to come down, pick a few strawberries, and put them on your cereal in the morning. So y'all have a great day. Let me know what you think and some ideas that you may have. Subscribe to the channel. It actually gets it more attention. And leave a comment and like the video. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.